people can get upset about COVID being called a mild virus, but let's do the maths on COVID. In the immediate term of the outbreak in February 2020, the mainstream media, particularly in the Western world, was unashamedly trumpeting a figure of there would be 500 million deaths from COVID. That has therefore, with a population of 7 billion, that is a roughly 7% death rate. In the end, the figure was closer to 5 million, around maybe 7 million deaths. So that is 1% of that figure, and incredibly, that's 0.1% of the entire global population. Now I know what's coming next. We only survived because we have the vaccine. Well, I hate to break it to you, but the vaccine, the WHO has calculated that the vaccine only saved 20 million lives. So, just to put into perspective the insanity of being forced to lock down to engineer zero COVID, which hypocritically was being used to laugh at the Chinese in 2022 when they were still for some insane reason, I agree, like still locking down. But just to let's not deviate too much just yet. But that is ultimately 27 million deaths. That is, I believe, 1/350th of the global population, and that is 0.29% of the global population. So let's add that all together. That's, even with the vaccine, 1/280th of the world's population, and 0.36% of the world died. Now, therefore, overall, in the grand scheme of things, even scaling down the lethal death, that's what they were referring to this virus, death rate to 3 to 4%, which they did a massive U-turn on that 7%, down to 3.4%. Overall, let's put that into perspective. COVID was 10% as lethal as predicted. Less than 1% of the world actually died, and only 10% of the entire global population even got infected. And therefore, fundamentally, even with the misleading 3 to 4% death rate, that proved to be only 10% as fatal as that, you had a 96% chance in a worst case scenario of surviving COVID, and in reality you had effectively a 99.6% chance of surviving. So let's just put that into perspective for Western investors, that you who won't invest in Chinese AI because of Marxism, totalitarianism, one party state communism, whatever. You threw all your freedoms and human rights completely under the bus for not being able to live, in theory, with a 96% survival rate, and in reality, a 99.6% survival rate because of irrational fear, because you were manipulated by the CIA to achieve certain objectives, but the two very clear objectives since 2016 and the Made in China policy was number one, the removal of Donald Trump by any means necessary from office. And it's the most staggering coincidence that COVID outbroke in his re-election year. And number two, the overthrow of the Chinese government, either through a political revolution, and if that can't be achieved, through the crashing of the Chinese economy, because the CCP's legitimacy is contingent on delivering economic growth.